And Teaplanter and Ben Pollock continue to lead, followed by Blake's Off and then Kites Hardwick. Richard Hunt is now level with Lucky Christopher, and only now about 4 lengths behind all that group is Sharif Star. Into the straight then, and coming towards what will be the second last next time. This time round it's number 7. Teaplanter still with the advantage. Teaplanter touches down first from Blake's Orphan, and then Kites Hardwick, Lucky Christopher, Richard Hunt and Sharif Star. So no real change in the order of running as they come to the 8th, with Teaplanter still leading from Blake's Orphan. Lucky Christopher is next with the blue sleeves, and then Kites Hardwick and Richard Hunt. And just beginning to lose ground again is Sharif Star. So as they come on up towards the winning post for the first time, Teaplanter it is who leads them. Teaplanter from the blinkered grey Blake's Orphan, and then altogether Richard Hunt, Lucky Christopher, and between those two Kites Hardwick, and last of all still Sharif Star. Teaplanter lands first again from Blake's Orphan, and then Kites Hardwick. Lucky Christopher going the shortest way on the inside, and then Richard Hunt, and lastly Sharif Star. So just less than a circuit to run then in this fine lace Hunter's Chase, and they've now reached the halfway point. Teaplanter rejoined by Blake's Orphan. Blake's Orphan up on the outside of Teaplanter, and then Lucky Christopher with Richard Hunt making a little ground. And over this next one, again little between the two leaders. Richard Hunt just a little bit slow at that fence, but remains in touch, with Teaplanter and Blake's Orphan leading still from Lucky Christopher, then Kites Hardwick and Richard Hunt. And you've got to look an awful long way back for Sharif Star, only just climbed over that ditch and is now well and truly out of it. So to the downhill fence, Teaplanter in the air first from Blake's Orphan, and then Lucky Christopher, Kites Hardwick and Richard Hunt in that order. They now enter the back straight for the last time, and Teaplanter has a useful lead now, a lead of some 5 or 6 lengths ahead of the rest, still headed by Blake's Orphan, followed by Lucky Christopher with Richard Hunt moving up once more, and then Kites Hardwick. So to the first in the far straight. This will be fence number 12 of the 18, and it still has Teaplanter leading. Teaplanter 1, Blake's Orphan coming to it over 2, and then taking off and landing 3rd, Lucky Christopher. 4 is Richard Hunt, and in 5th place comes Kites Hardwick. So they now go to the 1 before the final water, and at this fence it's Teaplanter taking off and landing with a useful lead still, followed by Blake's Orphan and Lucky Christopher, then Richard Hunt trying to get on terms, and a big gap now opening up to Kites Hardwick. So to the water jump for the second and last time, and Teaplanter has extended his lead, if anything. Teaplanter going on about 10 lengths now ahead of the others, with Lucky Christopher now moving into second place, and behind Lucky Christopher as they come to this plain fence is Richard Hunt, who is now 3rd, in front of the long-time second Blake's Orphan, who now looks a spent force, and then comes Kite Hardwick. So they're racing in single file as they leave the back straight, and they've now just got 3 fences left to take. And this one they're coming to, the uphill fence, is the final open ditch. It's fence number 16. Teaplanter into it first, jumps it well, followed by Lucky Christopher, reached for that fence, almost went, but is all right. And the one who also almost went was Blake's Orphan. He made a worse mistake, but it's Teaplanter still leading. Teaplanter from Lucky Christopher, Richard Hunt in pursuit, and then Kites Hardwick and Blake's Orphan. Still jumping, but way, way back is Sharif Star. So they now come to the final turn. They've got about 2.5 furlongs left to travel, that's all. And Teaplanter, the first in line for home, into the straight now, bidding for his 5th win here at Towcester over this trip. And it's Teaplanter with surely an unassailable lead now. Jumps it well from Lucky Christopher coming to the fence in second, then Richard Hunt. After these, a long, long gap back to Kites Hardwick and Blake's Orphan. So they're now near the 18th and last fence, and it's Teaplanter barring a fall, and he's jumped every fence well so far. At the last, Teaplanter safely over it, and on the run for home, it's Teaplanter who's going to win virtually at his leisure, from Richard Hunt taking second place late ahead of Lucky Christopher. But close home, it's Teaplanter for Caroline Saunders and Richard Russell and Ben Pollock. A long, long way clear in the end of Richard Hunt second, Lucky Christopher is 3rd, and the one who'll be 4th is Kites Hardwick.